The supply curve analyzes the producer or the seller's choice. The supply curve is defined as the curve or the line that shows us the relationship between price of a good and the quantity supplied of a good, keeping all other factors that affect quantity supplied constant. The law of supply is what I have shown on this graph. Quantity supplied of the good, Q, rises as price rises, all else equal. So although there are all these other factors that can affect quantity supplied of a good, if only price is changing, then the law of supply says when P goes up from, for example, P1 to P2, quantity supplied will increase from Q1 to Q2. Just like there are non-price factors that affect demand, we have non-price factors that affect supply. The first two factors listed here affect the cost of production of producers. So one of the most important factors that determine cost of production is input prices. So if you run a business and you hire workers, you have to pay them wages. If the wage that you have to pay your employee goes up, you will want to supply less, all else equal. Another reason that you would want to supply less or supply more if there's a change in technology that affects your cost of production. This technology could be in the form of a new gadget, a new software, a new machinery, but it could also be production innovations or processes like the assembly line. Expectations also play a role in quantity supplied. So suppose you're a farmer and you're expecting that the price of your produce will go up tomorrow, for example. You'll be able to get a higher price for your produce tomorrow. What you're going to do is you're going to keep your produce until tomorrow, and as a result, quantity supplied today will be affected. And this is called hoarding. And that's how expectations play a role. Price of related goods can also play a role in how much a seller is willing to supply. Suppose you're a farmer again and you have the option of planting either rice or wheat on your land. One of the things that will affect your choice is the price of the two goods. So if you are producing rice, for example, and then suddenly the price of wheat goes up, the quantity supplied of rice will fall. The last factor that affects supply is the number of sellers in the market. And that's pretty straightforward to understand. If you have more sellers in the market, the total supply of that good will go up. And so one example could be, right in the summer, there was a shortage of masks at some point, but then eventually more and more producers started making masks. And as a result, we could see that more and more shops were carrying and selling masks. When the price of a good changes, it leads to a movement along the supply curve. So if the only thing that's changing in the market is the price of the good, then we say that there has been a movement along the curve from one point to the other. If the change that we're talking about in the market is a non-price factor, then we will shift the supply curve. So for example, let's say that cost of producing a good falls. Okay, we would show this on this graph as a right shift in the supply curve. So cost of production could fall for many reasons. One of them could be input prices fell. So the shift indicates that at the same price, P1, the seller would be willing to, previously they were supplying Q1, but now they would be willing to supply more. Okay, let's say Q3. Suppose price increased. Previously, they were willing to supply Q2. Now they're going to supply slightly more Q4. So a shift in the supply curve shows that the producer will supply more at each price. See if you can answer this question after watching the video on supply.